Now, this morning's speaker. I'm very pleased to introduce our Convocation speaker this morning. Gary Mason began his journalism career in British Columbia in 1981, working as a summer intern for Canadian Press. One of his first assignments was covering the last days of the province's favorite son, Terry Fox. Gary would later go on to work for the Victoria Times Colonist before joining the Vancouver Sun, where he worked for 19 years in a variety of roles, including legislative bureau chief, city editor, and deputy managing editor, before he began writing a popular sports column in 1997. He joined the Globe and Mail in 2005 as a national affairs columnist based in Vancouver. Included among his many achievements are 2 National Newspaper Awards and 6 Jack Webster Awards, including 2010 Commentator of the Year. He appears regularly on television and radio to offer his thoughts on a wide range of issues. Gary has authored 6 books, including his most recent, the #1 bestseller, Patriot Hearts, Inside the Games That Changed a Country, written along with John Furlong. I'm also very proud to say that he's recognized at Langara as an outstanding alumni. Members of the Platform Party, graduates, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure I give you our Convocation speaker for this morning, Mr. Gary Mason.
Well, thank you very much, President Ross, for that kind introduction. Good morning, board members, members of the faculty, distinguished guests, all the proud moms and dads in the audience, all the proud grandmothers and grandfathers, and of course, our graduates. Well, you did it. And before we get started, I'd like everybody to give these people a round of applause for the remarkable achievement. This is a particular honor for me. 30 years ago, I was sitting where you are, at least metaphorically. I wasn't able to attend my graduation ceremony because of some conflict, the source of which I have long since forgotten. So this makes up for it. I graduated from Langara with a diploma in journalism. And when I look back on my career and how fortunate I've been, I recognize that I likely wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for this fine institution. So I owe it a lot. Now, this is my first commencement address. And as I thought about what to say today, I realized there were 2 ways I could go. I could give you a speech that was filled with the usual platitudes. You know, the kind that talks about how the world is your oyster, how you should reach for the stars, and if you only get to the moon, that's okay. You should never stop dreaming big dreams. Or I could give you a talk that was perhaps a little more pragmatic in nature. And given that the so-called real world is the one in which I operate every day as a journalist, I felt that was the conversation that I was most comfortable having with you today. I thought I might give you a condensed version of my story in the hopes that there may be a lesson or 2 in it for you, even for those who are planning to go into fields such as criminal justice or computer science or library and information technology. In that sense, I think my story and its message are universal. I graduated from the journalism program in the spring of 1982. Most of you weren't even born then. And you have no idea how much it pains me to say that. But I graduated just as a nasty recession was taking hold in North America. Industries were laying people off, including the newspaper business. Certainly few were hiring. My fellow journalism graduates and I looked around at one another and wondered, what the hell are we going to do? Well, many of us were forced to pursue other career avenues. We needed to pay the rent, and so we took jobs where we could find them. Many of my classmates would never work a day as a reporter. That said, many would become incredibly successful in fields they didn't imagine themselves getting into when they enrolled in journalism. The same thing will happen to some of you. It is the story of life. For me, I was able to hang on to a one-day-a-week job at the Canadian Press News Agency. I was able to survive mostly because I lived with my girlfriend at the time, who had a good job in the media. She was also a Langara journalism grad who was a year ahead of me. And I'm happy to report that we're still going out. In fact, next year we will have been married 30 years, so this is something else for which I have Langara to thank for. But as I say, while she had a full-time job, I didn't. I began freelancing to magazines. And over the next couple of years, I would apply everywhere in the country for a job. Well, for most of that period, I would go to the mailbox in the morning looking for some sort of reply. Now, I know some of you are wondering what letters are and what mailboxes are. That's how we once communicated in the world. Inevitably, the letters would arrive, and just as inevitably, they delivered the same bleak news. Thank you for your interest, but we have nothing for you at the present time. I wasn't the only young person getting those letters at the time. Many freshly graduated 20-somethings were getting them too. And many were throwing those letters in the garbage just as quickly as they received them. Not me. I kept them. I kept all of them in a shoebox. Now you might think that's odd. You wouldn't be alone. But I kept those letters for a reason. Every so often, I would go and open that shoebox up, and I'd read those letters, and I'd say to myself, I am going to make you sorry that you didn't hire me. I am going to succeed, and one day you will know my name, and I am not going to let you defeat me. That was an important decision on my part. It was important because there are two ways you can look at rejection letters. You can look at them and think, wow, I'm the world's biggest loser. I must be pretty much unemployable if this many people want nothing to do with me. Or you can look at them and think, I will prove you wrong. I am going to succeed. I am going to succeed and never forget this trail of rejection, because one day I will realize how much it helped me. Now, I tell you this story not to depress you, but to prepare you for the road ahead. It's not going to be without its challenges. Many of you will be told, we have nothing for you at the present time. There will be times when doubt will creep into your minds about the future and the path you have chosen. Some of you will change course and take a different route entirely from the one you set out on, and that's fine too. But if I can tell you one thing, it's this: don't let a little rejection defeat you. In fact, it can be good for you. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson who once said, "Dear to us are those who love us, but dearer are those who reject us as unworthy. For they add another life. They build a heaven before us whereof we had not dreamed, and thereby supply to us new power out of the recesses of the Spirit, and urge to us new and unattempted performances." The fact is, there isn't a person in the world who has been a success at anything who hasn't had to deal with rejection at some point. It's what you do with rejection and setbacks and disappointments that will define your life in many respects. These are interesting times you enter as young adults. As a generation, you are inheriting a world that is, quite frankly, starkly different than the one I was welcomed into at your age. It is vastly more complicated, the problems exceedingly more multifaceted and intractable. You have your work cut out for you, perhaps many more than any generation in decades. But here's the good news. I have never been more optimistic about a generation meeting those challenges. You see, I know you. Not personally, but you have been in and out of my house for years now. I have 2 boys, roughly your age, so I have met you in a manner of speaking. I have come down in the morning to discover you sleeping on my couches, chairs, floors, backyard, and even in the backseat of my car. I've told you to turn down the music at 3 a.m. And yes, I have sometimes listened in on slightly slurred conversations about music and art and girls and boys and become very wistful. I know the stock that you come from. I know that you are incredibly bright, fun-loving, and more compassionate than perhaps any generation that preceded you. You have what it takes to make a difference, to challenge existing orthodoxies, to be unafraid about upsetting the status quo and reinventing the wheel. And this is a good thing, because you're going to have to. So with that, let me say all the best. Congratulations on your significant milestone today, on your significant achievement. Now go out and make Langara and your family proud. Thank you very much.